I want to welcome you to the Alchemy Podcast, where innovation meets compassion in the world of residential care. I'm your host, Elia Grougouris. I'm one of the founders of Alchemy and a lifetime advocate of raising the standard of long-term care. Today, we've got a special guest, Elia Grougouris. He's a doctor. He's an internationally renowned keynote speaker, traveled all over the world, which we'll get into. He's the author. He's authored and specializing in happiness, positive leadership, and corporate wellness. He's the host of the new TV show, The Happy Hour, on the Mental Health Television Network. Elia, we're glad to have you on the podcast today. As I was saying, it's going to be interesting for me to say my own name because I've never met another Elia, so this is a cool day for me.
Different spelling, but same name.
Different name, that's right, yeah. The Russians have Elias as well, of course, different spelling. You're Greek, right? Is that correct?
100%. As a matter of fact, I just got back from Greece 24 hours ago, so I'm a little bit still jet lagged.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a world traveler. We're meeting here today because of Drew, who's part of our team, who I know you've been a mentor to, and you've worked with him in a mentorship relationship in the past. And
Yes.
we had kind of been trying to put this podcast together, and he's going to be in Greece and he's going to be here. And so you kind of travel a lot. And to kind of break the ice, I've got 5 little questions. That's kind of like a would you rather kind of thing, and it's around travel. So we'll just kind of go rapid fire on this. The first one is, would you rather always fly first class, but have to work the entire flight, or fly economy and get to completely disconnect and relax?
I'll take the first class.
First class.
Because they do treat you like a king or a queen, as a matter of fact. So, yeah. And yeah, I'd rather do that.
I've heard good things, especially on overseas flights, those long 12-hour hauls. That's the way to go, right?
Well, the amazing thing, I flew to Greece about 3 weeks ago to give a couple of keynotes on happiness, actually, and navigating challenges and so on. So on the flight out there, I was bumped up. So I flew. You push a button, and your seat becomes a bed.
That's awesome.
And so I slept. It was a 10-hour flight from Washington, D.C., and I probably slept 6 hours. So when I got there, I was like refreshed, ready to go. It was morning, and it was great. So
that's awesome.
So coming back to your question, the third option is to fly first class and not do any work.
Yeah, not do any work.
That's a better option.
That's the best. That's the best. So second, would you rather live out of a suitcase forever, but get to see the world, or stay home with full comfort but no travel for 5 years?
I know this. Would you rather this or the other? So I'll tell you what I do with my wife and I. We live in near Boulder, Colorado, like 8 months out of the year. In the other 4 months, we live in Greece/Europe. Kind of the best of both worlds, and it's something that I've kind of manifested about 4 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. I'm like, man, there's got to be more to life than this. I always like the third option. When people give you a couple of options, I'm like, you don't have to stick to those 2 options. There's a third one, and to me, the third option is to try and do a little bit of both. And then by the time we're done with Europe, we're ready to come home and to settle in for a little while. But after several months, we're ready for the adventure of traveling again. That's how we kind of live our life, and we feel very blessed. How's that?
That's cool. Do you go to Greece during the winter months because Colorado is going to be cold, obviously, in the winter, or is it just kind of depends?
No, we try to go to Greece a couple times. We'll do the spring, like I did now, and then we do the fall. Summer months in Greece are insane because there's so much tourism. It's really hot. We have a home right next to the water, and I shipped my car over there 3 or 4 years ago, so we have some independence, so on. All I need is a little boat, then I'm done. But so, I try to avoid the summer months or late summer. The beautiful thing about Greece is September and even October, believe it or not, it's in the 70s and 80s. So it's lovely, and the water is still warm from the summer. You go swimming every day. If I was a tourist, or if I don't know Greece very well, I definitely would avoid July and August. You don't want to do that. Everything is hot, busy, everything's packed, the prices are double. So wait until September if you have that flexibility, or go in the springtime if you don't care about swimming, but you still want to see a beautiful part of the world.
That's cool. Yeah, Greece is beautiful. I would love to venture there one day. So I'm seeing a theme here, and I remember I watched a couple of your interviews, and you do I don't like the either or, I like the third option. And one of the examples that you gave was the glass half empty or half full. What about the cup overflowing? Why does it always have to be one way or the other? So I can see a trend here with the way you're thinking.
You're right. I've thought this way my entire life. This isn't something new for me, because I feel like when people are just given a couple of choices, they get locked in. And what if they don't like those? I think That's like saying there's only black and white, two colors. That's not true.
That's
We
not
got
true.
pink,
Yeah.
we got orange, we got red, we have blue. So I like to think, and I share that with when I do leadership training and executive coaching. I share that with people. Don't be so stuck on these are your two options. I'm like, no, you have multiple options. Let's pick the right one for you.
Right.
Let's say you're talking to an employee or to your team, right?
Right. Okay. This is going to be a great discussion. Let's power through these last three real quick. So the third question is, would you rather have perfect Wi-Fi everywhere you go or never have to deal with jet lag again?
I'm going to pick in this case, I'm going to pick the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Why is that?
The jet lag yesterday was a rough first day back, but I'm feeling better. I slept through the night last night. So I think the jet lag doesn't last that long. The frustration with mediocre Wi-Fi is actually, I'd rather have the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so would you rather extend every work trip by 3 days for personal exploration or get home immediately with zero travel delays?
I would do the exploration, I think. Especially
Yeah,
if you're far away from home. If you're far away from home, I would pick that, honestly.
might as well spend a couple of
I,
days with more fun. Okay, last
I think
one.
so. Yeah, I was
La-
going to say one thing. Every time you come back
yeah,
to the United States, you go through the customs, and you have these very serious government employees, let's put it that way, who look at your passport and you're like, oh, Greece, business or pleasure? Again, two choices. I'm like, both.
both.
You go to Greece and just happen to be business. It's got to be pleasure too. So to answer your question, I think it's important. If we're in a place I've never been to, I would rather explore
Yeah, yeah, that's
for sure.
definitely fun
For
for sure. Okay, last one. Would you rather always speak the local language fluently where you land, or have a local guide who knows your preferences that travels with you?
I, sometimes it's good to have a guide, but we like my wife. We'd like to explore, do our own thing. And fortunately, I speak Greek fluently. My wife speaks German, so like almost half, and everybody else speaks English in Europe for the most part. I'd rather do it without the guide. I kind of like my
Yeah,
independence that way.
yeah.
Yeah, I do. And
I think
and in countries that like like Italy, for example, or France. We went to France this year. I speak some French from high school, and I like making the effort to speak their language even minimally. And
yeah,
people really appreciate that, make an effort.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely would pick speaking the language fluently. I lived in Mexico for 2 years, and those first 2 to 3 months was really difficult when just can't communicate. Even though I had somebody that was fluent that could help me, it was a completely different experience once I was able to now communicate on my own, and it was just yeah, I would go with that one myself. So cool. Well,
Yeah,
thanks
and
for
people really
playing that.
appreciate it. Try to integrate into their culture and not assume that everybody speaks English. I think making that effort, just people are much more generous and they help you out more, I think.
So let's get into it here, I'm very interested about this. I think my wife's gonna love that I'm doing this episode for what I can gain out of it. I know other people will gain as much as well. But you've written and spoken extensively on happiness, right? So, what first drew you to that topic?
I think it's part of my DNA. Honestly, I think it's from the day I was born. Like really, when I came out of the womb, the nurse actually, when my dad asked,
The happy baby.
they were like five little babies. Now that we were all wrapped up in the same back in the day generic white blankets, right? And my dad came up to this little window, goes, "Which one's my son?" I had a smile on my face. She goes, "Your son." She's the happy one. So I kind of grew up as the happy. Like grew up. That's the story I was told growing up. He came out of the womb happy. And Aristotle, 2,500 years ago, said the following. He said, happiness is the whole purpose and meaning of life, the
Mm,
whole aim and end of human existence. Think about what he just said 2,500 years ago. Yeah, so to me, listen, if you were to ask any parent, and I do this every time I talk internationally, before I start my talk, I'm like, if you were to ask any parent or grandparent, whatever, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of your finances, regardless of your religious affiliation, nationality, ethnicity, gender, and so on, what would you like for your children? What's the answer to that question? I just want them to be,
happy.
and everybody says happy. So if that's true for the most vulnerable, our kids, our little kids, and we so clearly, universally state that, shouldn't that also be true for us as adults?
Mm,
So that's why, for me, happiness is the most important thing in life, bar none.
yeah. So tell us a little bit of, did you always know that this is something that you wanted to do and talk about? Was there a defining moment maybe that you were kind of going down a path and you realized you needed to switch something? What happened there? Why are we
Yeah,
unhappy
I,
so much?
I think there was a defining moment. Unfortunately, I lost my mom really young to cancer. One of the reasons why I moved to the United States was that so my mom could live longer, and she did for a few years. Her parting comments to me as she was dying, and she was a remarkable lady, a lady full of love, full of joy, full of life, taken way too soon. But her parting comments to me, literally on her dying, were, "My boy," she says, "don't worry about me. I'm going to be just fine. I just want you to be happy." And I think that, of course, when you lose someone who has such a profound impact in your life, and nobody's impacted my life more than my mom, the first year was rough. I was only
Yeah.
22 years old. I had just graduated from UCLA, and I was completely lost. My whole family, I grew up in a great family. My whole family was shattered.
Mm.
Shattered.
She was the glue.
My dad, she was the glue. My mom and my dad were in love with one another for 35 years. They met when they were 16.
Mm.
So my dad began drinking even more to deal with his grief. So I feel like I kind of lost my dad too. And
Mm.
then he moved back to Greece. He couldn't, stay here. My older brother, his own grief left into his own thing. So we went from having this great family to somebody throwing a freaking grenade and blowing the whole family up. So for the first year, I really struggled getting out of bed. I was like lost, depressed, in grief. But the funny thing happened, and this changed the course of my life. On the 1 year anniversary of her passing, in the first year, when you're dealing with grief, the first year is really rough. First Christmas, New Year's, birthdays, what, you name it.
Yeah.
Things
All the new experiences without that person, right?
is really hard. On the 1 year anniversary, her words came back to me. And it's, "My boy, don't worry about me. I just want you to be happy." And something clicked. Now, this is way before neuroscience. This is way before neural pathways. We knew about it, that the brain can actually change pathways. But I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's what happened to me. And I realized, and I said, the best way to really honor my mom was to be happy and to find my happiness. And that kind of became, I don't want to say an obsession,
Yeah.
but a very strong and powerful desire to not only find my own happiness, but then to share that with people around me,
Yeah.
my wife, my kids, extended family, friends, and of course my clients. As a clinical psychologist for 18 years, that was basically a positive psychologist, even way, way back then. And then in corporate, when I switched over to the corporate side, talking about creating cultures of happiness and working with a lot of CEOs and senior leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners, that became part and parcel. So yeah, happiness has been a big part of my professional career for the last 35 years.
Yeah. Well, in that, you work with a lot of people, right? You've written books about this. This is like a calling in life, right? So what part of being happy, or which path do you find that people struggle with the most when it comes to this
That's
pursuit?
actually the easiest answer out of all the questions you've asked. That's the easiest. You know what it is? Self-forgiveness.
Interesting.
Self-forgiveness is missing in action. Missing in action. And I worked with a lot of addicts when I was in private practice as a clinical psychologist. And when people are addicted, whether it's to drugs, alcohol, or pornography, whatever the case may be, it really can destroy their lives, right? And
Mm-hmm.
by the time they came to me, they've hit rock bottom. It's either their spouses, either you go and see somebody else, I'm divorcing you, or they've lost their job, or they've been arrested, or they've been who knows.
Right.
So they come in and, "Hey, my name is John, and I'm an alcoholic." And by the way, I did my dissertation on Alcoholics Anonymous, so I kind of know the 12 steps pretty well. My
Mm-hmm.
first response was like, "Actually, John, you're so much more than that." And they're like, "What?" "Yeah, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a friend, you got your professional career, you're a cousin, you're a nephew, you're like, there's so much more to you than that. And yes, you struggle with something that really has impacted your life, but don't limit yourself as saying, that's all I am." So they sober up, they get better, they go to meetings, they go to therapy and so on. No, let's say we're at a year's time and they're celebrating 1 year of sobriety, which is a big step. In the conversation that I had to do with forgiveness, "John, do you think, let's say God has forgiven you?" "Yes." "Whatever. Jesus Christ." Well, depending on what your
What your religion,
affiliation
what your
was.
beliefs are.
"You believe that?" "Or none." "How
Right.
about your
Right.
spouse? How about your kid? How about your boss? How about, and they go down the list, yes. And then the last question, of course, is, "John, have you forgiven yourself?" Guess what the best answer I have received? Not the most common. The best answer was, "I'm working on it." The most common answer was, "No, I
No.
haven't." And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we're not done yet. So get back on the couch because so there's a lack of self forgiveness. People just don't know how to do it, and so they walk around with guilt, with resentments, with self loathing at times, with which of course has even fueled some of the addiction if you think about it. So I take people through a self forgiveness process, and if you show me somebody who doesn't forgive other people, I guarantee it, they don't forgive themselves first. So self forgiveness, I feel like, is the one path that it's by far the one that people struggle the most.
And that sounds
Unfortunately,
and it sounds like, yeah, it's so much easier. Like everyone never, or maybe people don't even think about, I need to forgive myself. I need to forgive all these other people that did me wrong or circumstances. But is it because people just don't think about that, or is it too painful to
it's too
forgive
painful. They don't
oneself?
think of it. They don't know how to do it. What I'll tell you is what happens at the end. So we go through this process. I take them through this process. They have a list of things that I haven't forgiven them. So we go through the anyway. We burn the piece of paper, like going up to the heavens, like symbolically letting go and releasing it. You know what they would say before they leave? They're like, Dr. Elia, I should have done this years ago. Every single person has said that to me. Not half of
Yeah,
them, everyone.
yeah, every single one.
They all say, I feel like either 100 pounds has been lifted off me or 1,000 pounds has been like, I feel so light and I feel so
Yeah,
free. And that's when they say, wish I had done that sooner, right?
yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
when someone does that, when someone is able to forgive themselves, is it are they is it like they're really freeing themselves and they're now done with that and they start thriving, or is it there's still maybe like a relapse in they've forgiven themselves, they think that they have, but then they relapse into that not forgiving themselves again.
No, because I teach them a method and a way to do it that, for example, for me personally, there's nothing on my forgiveness list. It hasn't been there for years. I don't want to say decades, but years. There's nothing on my. And my wife said, how do you do that? And I'm like, simply, I don't take myself too seriously. That's part of it. you
Yeah.
know? Because if you take yourself too seriously, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, like back in the day when I was a perfectionist, not a whole
Uh-huh.
lot of forgiveness, which actually was
Mm,
the dead weight. So I had to do my
right.
own work, inner work, to realize that life is too short. When people say, I feel like I've been carrying a backpack for 30, 40, 50 years of things I haven't forgiven myself for, that's full of rocks, stones, boulders, right? When you let go and you wear it every single day before you brush your teeth, if you don't forgive yourself, you're carrying all that dead weight with you.
Right.
That's what happens when you go through the forgiveness process. That's gone. And when you realize how beautiful life can be when you've forgiven yourself, there is no relapse. Something comes
Right.
up, you make a mistake, you follow the process that I taught you. We kind of go through it, and then we move on. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. That sounds
It's
like
not as hard as people think. It's not.
it sounds also like it's more of an authentic way. It's attached to authenticity where you're really being real with yourself and not avoiding those things that are weighing you down, right?
And in today's world, especially, if you're not authentic, what are you then?
Yeah.
Some somebody you think other people want you to be. That takes a lot of like even me saying that out loud is just my brain is getting fried. Just be yourself, for better or worse. Just be yourself, and the more you are that way, the more people are attracted to you because they know what is what you get. When I teach people about happiness, I would say that in the audience, I will never ask you to do something I'm not doing myself. If I'm not doing it, I'm not going to tell you to do it. Even though it might be
Right.
good for you, I can sit up here and lie to you like, oh yeah, you should do this. If I'm not practicing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
That makes
if
sense.
people get that, they feel that from me.
Yeah. So in kind of the industry, kind of our what we do, we're in the assisted living space, senior care, right? Caring for other people, which is very extremely stressful. The environments are stressful and things like
Yes.
that. What are some things that can be done to help those environments when it's a stressful situation? Because when it's a stressful situation, it almost like it compounds whatever challenges are already there. Now that stressful situation makes it that much more difficult. So how can you find happiness or how can you control that when that was in those environments?
First of all, I'm really glad you said that because happy people tend to practice massive self care. So
Mm,
their self care is a non negotiable, meaning how well they take care of themselves physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. When you're facing a challenge, and this is human nature, this is not, and we're all this way. When a crisis come and go, but challenges are all the time. We're facing challenges, geopolitical challenges, economic challenges, health crises, health issues, and so on, right? Relationship challenges. when we're facing a significant challenge, what is the first thing that goes out the window? Self care. Because I can't afford to go or for a walk or whatever. And so I doubled down on that. I'm like, actually, it's the other way around. The greater the challenge you face, the more self care you should be doing.
Yeah.
Perhaps instead of half an hour a day, do an hour a day. But I can't
Yeah.
afford. I don't. No, you don't get it. It's the other way
Yeah.
around. You can't afford not to practice self care in order to successfully navigate the challenges that you're facing in life. So it's
Yeah.
backwards. Most people drop it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
no, double down. It's the other way.
It's the other way. I already know that my wife is going to watch this. She's going to clip this part out and she's going to send it to me because I literally am
And just
exactly the way you're saying.
the good doctor said it's just human nature to eliminate or minimize or sidestep self care when I'm going through challenges. And and I know what I'm asking is not easy because when we are facing a challenge, our whole focus is like, how can I overcome this or how can I fix this? I'm telling you, practice the self care first, and you'll have the stamina because life is not a sprint, is it?
Nope.
It's not even a marathon. It's an ultra marathon.
Yes.
So unless we practice that, we're gonna blow a gasket. Basically, you know what the alternative is? Burnout, which I've experienced, by the way. Like I didn't when I was younger. I didn't keep my own advice. I wasn't being authentic in some
Right.
ways. I was teaching people the right things, but I wasn't practicing myself until I got burned out when I was a clinical psychologist. It almost cost me my life
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
And that was a huge lesson for me. And I remember, I'm like, never again, Elia. This will never happen to you again, ever. And that was
Yeah.
20 years ago. And I'm here to tell you, I'm 20 years chronologically older. Yes, I have gray hair. I didn't have 20 years ago. But I'm physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healthier than I've ever been. Why? Because for the last 20 years, I made a serious commitment to myself and an adjustment. And I practice self care. Like I said, it's a non negotiable.
Yeah. So let's dive into there. What are those things that you're doing? Obviously, you only recommend what you do, but what are some of those things that are so vital for self care, in your opinion, and what you do?
I think the one thing that is movement, I think movement is underrated. I'm not talking about becoming an ultra marathoner or becoming a triathlete. Good for you if you want to do that's what you do. But I'm talking about movement every single day. Before the pandemic, I used to walk for an hour, like 3 miles, 3 times a week, because I had to. I'm like, I'm getting older. You should move. You should like don't be sedentary and so on.
Right. Right.
When the pandemic hit and the stress levels increased, not just for me but for everybody else, I'm like, Elia, this isn't cutting it anymore. Like again, more stress. So therefore, I have to double down. And I made a commitment. This was in April of 2020. So it's been over 5 years
Five
now.
years. Yeah.
5 years that I walk every single day, come rain or shine, snow, it doesn't matter, for at least an hour a day. And that's a non negotiable. And I used to always walk with my phone and be talking to the clients on the phone. I've now made a conscious choice to leave my phone behind at least 50% of the time. I'm not saying I do it every time, but 50% of the time. And then those walks become what I call my gratitude walks. So when I don't have my phone with me, I go for a walk. I listen to the little birds singing. I look at the blue skies and the nature around me. And I walk and I express my gratitude for a full hour. When I come back, not only do I physically feel well my batteries are full because I've expressed gratitude for a full hour. Even
Yeah.
if you do it for 20 minutes, that you enjoy the scenery around. Those are called my gratitude walks. Why is gratitude so important? Physiologically, and I'm not a medical doctor, but physiologically, you cannot be in a depressive state and in a grateful state simultaneously. That's physically impossible. Because when you're in a grateful state, guess what happens? The drug dealer, right here, the greatest drug dealer in the world, the human
Right.
brain,
Right.
starts releasing all those wonderful drugs, which are free, by the way. The dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, no, endorphin, all that stuff. And now your batteries are full, you're calm, your heart is full, and you can focus on and taking on the challenges of the day. Plus, you got an hour's worth of workout. So
Yeah.
that's my hack. That's my happiness hack because it's both physical, but it's also mental and emotional.
Yeah. That reminds me of a
You
principle.
can do this.
Yeah, that reminds me of a principle of I think it's called stacking habits or whatever, right? So you're doing two things at
Yes.
once that are benefiting you, right? And going back to the world that we live in, assisted living, senior care, it's a 24/7 business. there's
Right.
always that feeling and that urge to need to be at the facility or to answer the phone, and the stress levels get very extremely high. But it's a good reminder of what you're saying is really ideal. I mean, honestly, this is an excuse to say that we don't have a half an hour to go for a walk
And
and
I
to
would shoot for half an
be grateful,
hour.
right?
And
Yeah.
you have an hour. And by the way, the other time when I am on the phone, I'm not on the phone all the time, but I'm connecting with people. There's a social aspect of it. So if I'm by myself without my phone, gratitude and walking, if I have my phone, I'll connect with people. I'll call friends. Hey, how's it going? Because that connectivity too is important. It's the social aspect of it, right? So and that feeds me. I'm an extrovert, so connecting with people actually elevates my own mood in a lot of ways.
Right.
And people
Right.
are like, "Hey, I've been thinking about you. How you doing? What is the worst they could say to you? Why are you calling me in the middle of the day?"
Yeah.
But most people say, "Funny you should call because a
I was-
dot," and then you have a great conversation, and they feel loved because you reached out to them, and you feel good because you connected with some of your dear friends or acquaintances and so on. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. I think also one of the things that it was a great example. Was there so because like I was mentioning, this industry, they're 24/7 businesses that's very high stress level. So walking in gratitude is one thing. Is there one other one that you think would be a great benefit to those that are working in this kind of environment that's stressful?
Just realize that everyone in this world is having their own inner struggles. So I feel like just
Compassion.
towards
Yeah.
kindness, self-compassion, kindness towards self and others. I think
Hmm.
that's really important because if you think you're the only one that's having a bad day today, wrong. There's at least one or two other people, if not more, in your immediate circle that might be struggling too. So I think that kind of kindness, if somebody's not showing up at their very best, extend some grace for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the world. Kindness is free. Kindness doesn't cost anything. And I've co-hosting the Kindness Factor podcast for the last 4 years. So kindness is another one of my expertise in a lot of ways. Happiness and kindness. And those two things are interconnected. You can't have one without the other, right? Happy people by nature do acts of kindness all the time, and they're not even random acts of kindness. They're deliberate, conscious, mindful. On the flip
Yeah.
side, when we perform acts of kindness towards family members or our clients or our patients and so on, something beautiful happens to our human brain. Again, the drug dealer.
Hmm.
And we know this, that when we perform acts of kindness, our happiness level gets elevated. So again, that's another win-win. So between gratitude and kindness, I think those are the two things that's the lowest hanging fruit. Those are the easiest things to do.
Yeah. I think that's such a good reminder for our audience who, again, a lot of them are operators, right? And one of the biggest challenges that they face in the industry is that employer employee relationship. And there's a lot of turnover in the assisted living space, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong, a lot of frustration, and that kindness of extending that kindness or that empathy to that person that they're having a bad day or whatever, that can go a long way to that person being happy in their in their work environment in general, right? And but as like an owner or a manager or leader of that organization, you got to lead out that way. You got to make that become part of your culture and being grateful for that staff, but not just being grateful. I think letting them know, right? Would you agree with that, or what would you say to that?
Yeah, because feeling acknowledged and feeling like I'm seen with a capital S, I would say, is vitally important. What are the benefits of happy employees? I think that's what we need to talk about. And
Yeah.
why create a happiness culture? Like, why is that so important? People talk about that. In the old days, when I first started 20 years ago doing the corporate stuff, and I would get hired by CEOs and chief HR of it, and I would talk to them about happy cultures. This is before all the Forbes and the Harvard studies and all that stuff. What people would say, "Hey, Dr. Elia, we really like you. You're really a nice guy. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I pay these people to go to work. I get to work." I'm like, what? But you hired me for this. Nowadays, I don't have to prove anything to anybody as far as that's concerned. So getting back, the importance of having a happy culture and happy employees are so many. Let's start with the lowest hanging fruit. First of all, they're physically healthier. Do you realize that if you have happy employees, that they're physically healthier means that there's less turnover, greater retention, since this is a high turnover industry.
Yep.
Happy employees are better teammates. And I've had people push back and they said, "Well, why do you say that they're better teammates?" I said, because If I'm happy and my batteries are full, I can go to work and I can see Mary and I can see Mary has a cloud over her head because
Mm-hmm.
she's struggling, and say, Mary, what can I do for you today to help you out? Because my own batteries are full because I have practiced self care and all the other stuff, gratitude, kindness, and so on. And I can reach out and help somebody else out. And that makes you a better teammate. Happy employees are your best marketing tool. Happy employees recruit their friends and others. Say, you know what? You should come and work for Elia because his company is great because they have a great culture.
Yeah.
You would love it here. They recruit for you. You don't even have to spend marketing money to get people to
Right.
recruit people. And happy employees are more creative. They're more innovative. Ultimately, they're more productive and ultimately make the company, the organization more successful,
Yeah.
even down to the bottom line. That's the
Yeah.
reason why. All
Yeah.
those reasons.
Yeah, and going back to the assisted living world, right? Like happier employees are going to provide better care. They're going to have a more
Right.
happier interaction with that elderly person. And which when we used to own facilities, we saw this as well. Families see that interaction. They see that feeling, right? I'll never forget one time there was a family and she pulled me aside. They'd been there for about 6 months. She says, I've really been watching your staff and I can tell that you hire a certain type of person, right? I can tell that you have some kind of philosophy around what you're doing. And happy employees make happy everything else. Really.
And you can teach the technical skills, but it's the soft skills really that matter
Yep.
the most. And when a family brings somebody in, and, they're looking at your facility, but they're looking at 3 or 4 or 5 other facilities, guess what? Which one's going to win out? The one where they feel like this feels really nice. They may
Yeah.
not even be able to pinpoint exactly why it feels nice,
Yep.
assuming that the cleanliness and the professional like, across the board is pretty much similar. It's that intangible, it's that X factor that I call it. Man, this really feels nice. It almost feels like home, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
don't even have to sell your facility. You just like, yeah. And that starts with your employees. Because if they walk in, nobody's talking to anybody else. They have long faces and they're depressed and there's a collective cloud over the facility. They're not
Yep.
going to want to bring their mom or their dad or their grandpa or grandma to this facility because this doesn't feel right.
Yep. Yep. You don't have to say a word. You can just walk into the facility and get a feel for the place, get a feel for the workers, all based
Exactly.
upon that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the energy. It's really about, we're talking about energy now. Right.
Right. So like in those environments, like again in the assisted living world, which most of our audience is, right? Like one of the things that Alchemy does is we're trying to focus on streamlining operations so that we can make things simple and easy, right? So it's not
Yeah.
so stressful, right? So what role do you see like thinking simplistically, like having things being simple and clear? How does that shape or how does that impact the happiness, if you will, within the workspace?
I think making somebody else's life easier obviously has benefits, right? More clear you can communicate your expectations. I think that's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's very easily understood. Like when you have a meeting with your staff and they walk away, or they're walking away going, I'm not sure what Eli was trying to tell you. I'm kind of confused. I don't really know. Versus, oh, now I know exactly what is expected of me and is doable because his expectations are reasonable and I can do it. So I feel a sense of success and I feel a sense of accomplishment. I
Right.
feel like I can do this. If you complicate things for them, too many rules or too many things or too many, they're going to get depressed. They're going to feel
Right.
like, man, I can never, like, I'm barely surviving. They're not thriving, they're surviving. And you don't want
Right.
that anymore, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think also this just reminded me of I think it's the understanding the why. Why are you asking them? I think employees need to understand why are you asking them to do something, right? If they think that it's just, oh, the owner or the manager is being annoying, just wants this for whatever reason, like they're less likely to do that, right? One small example in our world is when we have our little poop emojis, right? Because we track bowel movements. And it seems like a small thing. Why do I got to track that? It's a pain. People actually die. People pass away because they don't have a bowel movement for 3 or 4 days when they're elderly, right? And so it's about letting them like the why of why we're doing this is extremely important. I think you would agree with that.
I totally agree. The why clarifies the expectation. So when you do that, then people are like, oh, okay, I get it. I
I get it.
understand.
Yeah.
If I don't get it, there's going to be some resistance. Why is he asking me to do this? This is so stupid. Because I don't understand what it is. Even though you're the boss, they're like, this doesn't make any sense. But if it does make sense, oh, I get it. I understand why it makes sense. And in some ways, it makes my life easier, and then it makes the patient's lives easier as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Or transitioning perhaps as they're getting older, and
Yeah.
puts it in easy. That's not an easy environment to begin with.
No.
So what can
It's
we do to make the environment simpler, digestible? Whatever you're asking me, like I get it. I get where
yeah.
you're coming from. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. So that transitions me into the question. So when people are wanting to make, so like let's say they watch this podcast or they've been thinking about it, they want to make that change, right? They want to make that change. They know they need to make a change. What advice do you have for leaders who are trying to implement change in an organization where burnout and resistance are high, and we got to make this change, but I've got to get people to buy in?
Honestly, yeah, that's why people hire me to come in and do that. That's what I do. They come in. I think you already know. I think the things that we talked about today, I don't think we're going to add like some other pearl of wisdom in the
Yeah,
next hour. That I think everything that we've talked about, just make sure that they know that you're doing it for the right reasons,
yeah,
not more money, but really because you care about them as people, you care about them as employees, that you want to create a family environment, like your company has to be like this is family. We take care of one another because
yeah.
the way you take care of your employees, like you said, is the way they're going to take care of the clients and the
Right,
patients. You
right.
don't take care of your employees, don't be complaining if they're not doing their best taking care of their patients after that. There's a direct correlation between those two things.
Yeah. I think to kind of sum up the episode, what I've learned is it really just starts with you, yourself. It starts with you taking care of you. You cannot, and I think Stephen R. Covey talks about this with, I don't know if it's sharpening the saw or whatever,
Right.
but like it's essentially you can't help somebody else if you're not in a position mentally, physically, spiritually to help them. And so you got to start there first, right? That's really where it
And
all comes down to.
yes, and it's an investment in yourself, which will always pay off.
Yeah.
I've said, isn't self care selfish? I'm like, yes, and do more. Because, and of course, selfish is a negative connotation. I don't see it that way. I'm
Right.
like, listen, to your phone, do you wait until it's 3%? It's almost dying
Mm,
before you plug it in? Because self care is the equivalent of plugging it in,
mm,
right?
mm,
And do you plug it in until it goes up to 5% or 90%?
right.
Just plug it in until it goes 5%. Within half an hour, you're going to be dead again.
Yeah.
So that's why I say you don't take, I personally don't take shortcuts with self care because I want my batteries for me personally be at 90% and above
Yeah.
at all times. If it drops 50%, I'm like, I'm in trouble. I know it's for myself. So I got to
Yeah.
up empty.
Yeah.
And it
No, I
definitely is not
love that.
below 50%. I can guarantee you that. It's not going to happen. I paid the price. I've been through burnout. I've almost lost my life. I know what it's like to be at 3%. Never again.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think again, my wife's just going to put this on repeat for myself. I think this podcast is more for me than maybe the audience. But really, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming on. I think there's just so much good content here for people that there people should be able to implement something from what we've talked about here. Obviously, that self-care being the primary thing. But as we wrap up here, where can people follow you? Where can they get involved with you if they want to learn more about your
Yeah,
mission
I
or things of
mean,
that
Dr.
nature?
Elia Grougouris at .com is my website. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is probably the place where I have a lot to. You know, the one thing I wanted to say, actually, two
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
To your wife, and to your audience. Number one is do not procrastinate your happiness. Don't wait until the wins. Because we all live in the wins. Like when I'm in the right relationship, when I get married, when I have kids, when my kids grow up, when I have enough money, when I get to travel, when I retire, when I forget all the wins. There are no guarantees any one of us are going to be here tomorrow. So live your best life and live your best life now, and don't procrastinate your happiness. That's number one. The last thing is in life, it doesn't matter what we know. Honestly, what matters is what do we do with what we know. So
mm,
take action. Really. Don't we all know all these things that I talked about happiness? Aristotle talked about that 2,500 years ago. I didn't say anything new.
yeah,
But are we doing it? Or are we just talking about it? If we're just talking
mm,
about it, then we're wasting our time. Let's put it into action for ourselves, for our family, as a gift to our family, to our spouses, and to our kids, and for our employees, and therefore for our patients and our clients. It's all connected.
no, I love that. That's great advice. I think that everyone, especially in our industry, needs to hear that because I see it a lot in my own self. There's not a lot of that, and there needs to be more. We care for the residents and the families, but we're not caring for ourselves, and
Right.
I know that
Right.
firsthand. So, cool. Well, hey, I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
This is alchemy, empowering those who care. Owners, caregivers, they gon' get you there. Expert insights, real stories, and more. Real strategies to help you grow for sure. This the Alchemy Podcast. Creating better spaces, it's much to share. This the Alchemy Podcast. Help you build, grow, and thrive in the future of care. This the